Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Did You Hear That? I'm your host, Brandon Suarez. This is my lovely wife, my co host today, Nina. And what we're going to cover today, mostly, the show is about talking about spooky things, talking about ghosts, aliens, UFOs, Bigfoots, conspiracy theories, cryptids, anything that would make you go, you know, did you hear that? When you're all alone and you hear that creak of the floor, or you think you hear a thud outside, but it's probably just the ice machine dumping ice. Whatever it may be, anything that gives you the spookies at night. But today's episode may be, you know, most people would consider not that scary. Unless you really look at the facts and look at the origin of where this comes from. And today we are talking about a mythical sea creature. And I know, there's some big companies out there that have really, I would consider, or I would call it, churching up the idea of this beast, trying to glorify and put lipstick on a pig.
Lipstick on a pig.
They're really trying to change the narrative of a truly, what I would consider, a pretty scary idea. But today, what we're talking about, mermaids.
Well, I can definitely see the lipstick on a pig when it comes to a mermaid.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the Little Mermaid, you see beautiful redhead or whatever iteration they have going on now, but it's usually like, glorified as this gorgeous woman or whatever until
Like
you see the
me.
bottom half and it's just fish fins. Weird. But anyways, that's what the episode's going to be about. And I'm telling you, the real stories and origins of the mermaid is a lot spookier than, the big companies would want you to see. So, or the big companies would want you to think. So that's what our episode is going to be about. Stick around. Let's have some fun. But before that, let's get the intro. So, like I said, today's episode, we're going to be talking about mermaids. And this was obviously not my first choice of a topic. But if I'm being honest, hearing the true, like, old school sailor stories and stuff throughout the years, mermaids are not exactly, the Disney whatever they come up with.
They're 100% not. As a matter of fact, that's how Lorelai, my daughter, got her name. Well, outside of the Gilmore Girls, my obsession for them, as a teenager. It wasn't until a little later that, when I was actually after I had her and I'd already named her Lorelai, that I discovered that there's actually a myth or legend or whatever about Mermaid Lorelai. And Mermaid Lorelai, the myth and legend as goes,
Allegedly.
yeah, allegedly, because there's many different versions out there if you
Yeah.
actually Google. But shorthand, short terms.
The short version.
Right.
Yeah.
So when a sailor falls overboard, Mermaid Lorelai would bring them to shore. So of course, she was the little mermaid that brought her dad to shore because he actually literally had to leave the ship and be there for her birth. So it just kind of randomly just stuck.
All right. Well, that would be one of the happy stories. Like, for years and years and years. Well, first off, let's just get into the actual origin. Most people think Little Mermaid, whatever, and they think around that time frame, or maybe a little bit before that. But actually, since the year 1000 BCE, there has been markings and stories and different artifacts and stuff, that actually show versions of mermaids, or what they thought were mermaids, basically half human, half fish beings that they would come across in their journeys, or whatever they were getting into, which
Well,
is pretty crazy to think that it would go back that far.
yeah, but I mean, are mermaids really real? And are they really, I mean, can anybody really truly say that they've seen a mermaid outside of the ones, that go, for show, dancing around in the water with their little fins?
Now look, I'll be honest with you. I will support my big dog Bigfoot and aliens. I will fight that argument to the grave. Mermaids, absolutely not. I mean, that's, to me, that's definitely reaching for straws on that one. But I mean, it's just like anything else. Is it fun to think that they could possibly be real? Absolutely. Yeah, why not?
I mean, that's like unicorns. I mean, everybody, wants to believe when they're a little girl growing up. Yeah, I want to believe that mermaids and unicorns are, real. I mean, but when you start Googling some of the stories, I'm telling you what, the mermaids were pretty scary, like the sirens.
Oh yeah, the sirens were definitely one of the scariest versions. And anybody that's not familiar with sirens, basically sailors would be out, like I said, months at a time, and which is another thing. Mostly sailors, you equate or think of like a male sailor, and you got to think, if you're on a ship and it's like 20 or 30 of you, and it's nothing but dudes on that ship, you're going to start fantasizing about women.
And they would
At least I
actually,
know I definitely would.
yeah, and they
And
would
then they would,
actually sing to them to lure them and then drag them
yeah,
off
they
the
would
ship.
claim that they would hear like this beautiful singing, and then they would look out and see this beautiful woman, and then they would go try to rescue it or get close, and they would snatch them and drag them to their watery grave.
Which is weird to think about nowadays because, we have females inside the military now as well. So it's not just a man type population
Yeah, it's
anymore.
not it's not necessarily all mermaids. Now it's mermans,
Yeah.
which is hilarious to think of.
So merman.
Yeah, mermen. Yeah. Why hasn't Disney tried to cover that one?
I don't know.
Just let it be known that I said it here on this podcast first. So if it shows up, I expect some royalties coming.
So merman. So instead of it being Ariel, the little mermaid that gets her legs and she goes to shore, is going to be a merman that wants to go to shore and get his leg.
Yeah, instead of Ariel, it's like what, Al, this big Al out there singing his beautiful country songs to lure in the women that are so desperate to see a man.
Oh my goodness. But I mean, when you think of it in terms of a mermaid being seen back in the BCs, like I was telling you earlier today, um, how would one even possibly, fathom a mermaid in BC? I mean,
Well, all right. Look, fast forward a little bit. 1400s. It was a very high profile uh, man, high profile person that claimed on his voyage to the Americas that he seen a couple mermaids along the way. You know who this man is?
who?
Christopher Columbus.
Get
Christopher
out of here.
Christopher Columbus journaled and made entries of seeing mermaids along his voyage to the Americas.
I still really think that some weird group of individuals, like the furry people, no offense to the furries, but anyway, you have the modern day people that want to put on their fins. Maybe back then or whatever, they had some group that, just chopped off half of a huge fish or whatever and gutted it out and just threw it on and decided, let's, go for a swim.
I mean, sure, sure. I guess you could possibly, you know, make that argument. But the more, the more common argument is that what they were actually seeing was just a straight up uh, mirage. I don't know what you would call it when it comes to an animal. It wasn't an actual like scene. I always think the desert mirage, seeing stuff out there, but what they were actually, most experts allegedly, what they said they were seeing was manatees, which is hilarious that any dude would be out on the sea for that long and mistake a sea beast, a sea lion, a manatee for a gorgeous woman. How rough were these women looking in these towns that they were going to?
They were thick.
And gray and got whiskers and making.
And they have voluptuous red, blonde, and brown hair.
No, they were, like I said, they were bald, had whiskers, made strange noises, definitely wasn't singing. Maybe they were just super drunk.
I think they were drunk.
They were just hammered, missing seeing a woman in person, stuck out there with these stinky dudes left and right. So much so that they would see an animal in the ocean and think, that's a beautiful woman. That's rough.
The ale took over for sure.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've been hammered a few times. Never quite that bad, but I've definitely seen some people leave with a couple of manatees myself. And
Don't call
yeah,
the call.
yeah, don't call the call. A little inside joke there for everyone. But anyways,
I'm not drunk. I'm just drinking.
no, yeah, yeah, that's something like that. Yeah, but yeah, just getting back to it though, the idea of mermaids and going back that far is pretty wild. But when you consider like the circumstances and everything that was going on when most of these sightings were being seen, um, yeah, I mean, it's got to just be booze and loneliness.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to think being out at sea for weeks on end,
I mean, months,
24/7.
years, depending on the time period that they were seeing them in. I mean, it could have been years.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's just nuts.
I mean, you know, nowadays they can be deployed anywhere from 6 months to a year out at sea. And it's
Yeah,
crazy to even think that they would be out there for that long. And I mean, that's not that the ships don't dock in different places and things like
right.
that. But I mean, after a while of seeing just absolutely nothing in sight,
Yeah,
you would have to think that if they didn't actually see some type of scenery, they would literally start to lose their mind.
yeah. Because I mean, not to get too far off the subject or the track, but thinking in those terms, not only were they possibly just seeing women in the sea, but you hear stories of like ghost ships and stuff, and
Mhm.
just uh, the kraken. I mean, there's so many different things that we could cover. Just sea monsters and sea beasts, and you know, sea paranormal.
But come on, the mermaid's still pretty awesome.
I mean, if it was real, sure, I'd like to see one up close. I mean, if the dude from Ripley's Believe It or Not back in the whenever days he was doing his explorations didn't run across one, which although he actually did claim that he found one, in some off sea somewhere, but I think they debunked that from being like someone had cut a fish in half and like a deformed person and sewed them together or something and tried to pass it off as one.
See, BCs. BCs.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. I think that's probably what it was.
They didn't have TV. They didn't have video games. What else did they have?
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. History repeats itself.
Yeah, you're right. All right, so we've covered right much stuff on the mermaid topic. And of course, that's what this episode's about. So, of course, we're going to do that. So, how I like to end the show is I want to make up a story off the top of my head. Obviously, we're married. You know, I've seen a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows, read a lot of books, random crap. So,
And you're very imaginative.
yeah, definitely. So, let's just say, you know what? I was gonna frame it as you being pretending that you were a male sailor, but we'll go merman. We'll stick with the merman. So let's just say it's 1487. You're stuck on an old timey sailing vessel, wood, you know, worn in wood floors, swabbing the deck type stuff, worn in wood side panels, the old school flag going up. Everyone's trying to work together. You're on a group of, let's say, 25 women. You haven't showered in months.
Ew.
You haven't seen another person besides these 25 in months. Sun goes down, worked all day. It's just smooth sailing. All you can see, big bright moon, the waves dancing around, the reflection of the moon shining. And off in the distance, you start to hear singing. And it's a beautiful, angelic voice. Not really singing anything that you notice, more of like a humming type sound. And you look over and you see not really an island, but you see like a couple of big rocks, you know, kind of out there. Maybe, the water's a little shallow on that side. And then out of nowhere, you see this gorgeous male face, almost fake, almost porcelain.
You mean Magic Mike with flippers?
Sure. You see Magic Mike's face poke out of the water, and he's humming this beautiful "I'm about to snag me a chick," hymnal. What's your move?
um, well, considering that it might be modern day or
No,
past
no, no.
tense.
I said 1480.
Okay. Okay, so cameras are not a thing in 1480.
No.
Because if it was modern day, I would totally be trying to grab a camera or something and take a snapshot.
Yeah. No cameras in sight.
1480.
You barely have toothpaste in this time period. Like, what are you talking about, cameras?
I'd be over there trying to check my breath.
Oh, it's straight garbage. Come on.
It's like,
Yeah. If you can't smell it, it's because your nostril is just dead.
my nose hairs are gone.
Yeah, everything. Yeah. Rough. Hair ain't been brushed in months. Teeth ain't been washed. You've got the dirt of the sea and the ship on you.
This is depressing. Yeah, I
But
would just
but
jump.
you see this gorgeous man only from like, waist up. You trying to go in and see if it's a merman, or are you just gonna assume that's a trap, stay away?
Um, well, if I'm not actually aware that maybe I'm hallucinating and going crazy, then of course, yeah. Who wouldn't? What female wouldn't, that's attracted to the opposite gender, wouldn't try to go out there and check it out and be like, hey, Magic Mike, you
Yeah. Where'd you get your toothpaste from?
know? Let me get some of that seaweed.
Yeah. And then of course, you swim over, he grabs you around the neck and drags you to your death. And then you're just another little footnote in the history of mermans everywhere.
I would be a pretty little footnote, I hope.
Back in 1480, with all that going on, I don't think anybody was a pretty footnote.
I'll go down and never be thought of again. That's sad.
No, they would sing songs of your bravery and willingness to overlook your, unkempt self to try to snatch you a man.
The naive Nina.
Yeah.
That's what they would
They
name
would
it.
start singing like
Nina.
women hymnals. That would be one of their little sailor songs that they would sing.
Naive Nina.
Yep. Well, I have to say, Mermaids was not my first choice, but that was pretty fun.
I have to say, yeah, I can't say that as a kid I didn't just hate mermaids. I mean, what little girl doesn't like mermaids?
Yeah,
So,
of course.
yeah, but to think of it in, the sense of how Google describes the sirens and things like that, yeah, looking at mermaids in the not so Disney light was definitely a different adventure to travel down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Don't let them fool you, folks. All right. It ain't all sunshine and rainbows over there
Definitely
on
not.
the salty sea. There's beasts out there.
And they are salty.
Their name is Ariel and Big Owl, okay? And they will drag you to your death. Stay away. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close out this episode. Folks, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We hope you had some fun. We hope you learned a little bit. Really wasn't a whole lot to learn because,
No.
I mean, it's all allegedly. But if nothing else, we hope you had some fun, had a couple laughs. Again, look, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, smash the subscribe, kickflip the notifications, do whatever you guys want to do or need to do or feel compelled to do to try to help us out and help us grow this. Another thing I want to mention, this podcast is fueled by Desperado Metal Designs. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to throw a link up and you guys can check it out whenever you feel like it. Got some pretty cool stuff over there. Rings, necklaces, hats, all handmade by yours truly. And we just want to thank you guys for checking out the show. If you've made it this far, here's a thumbs up to you.
And shout out to my girls, Katie and Leah.
Shout out to you. And shout out to anybody that's checked out this episode. Like I said, you guys know what to do. Spread this thing around. And for the last closing words, until next time, keep it spooky.
Ooh.
It's a ghost town.